Hello, Maverick Traders. Welcome out to your currency recap for September 16th. Corey here with you. Always fun. Let's jump in. So we're going to take a look at meaningful news. We're anticipating the Fed meeting that comes out on Wednesday, and we've got some currencies. We've got some crypto that are moving. We're going to highlight some bullish and bearish candidates, and we'll do that in real time.
Disclaimer. This video was created for professional Forex and crypto traders. Maverick Currencies is a proprietary trading firm that employs professional traders around the world. Our traders trade firm capital and keep 70 to 80% of profits they generate. All trades and analysis in this video are for professional traders only. If you are interested in becoming a professional Forex and currency trader for Maverick, click the apply button in the video description. Let's break down what happened today.
All right, so we're going to start with a little bit of a market update. Markets, I think, in terms of this week, are awaiting a little bit of data. So we've got retail sales out in the morning, Tuesday morning. Its expectations are for a little bit of a slowdown, minus 0.2%. Last retail sales came in at positive 1%. So we can clearly see they're expected to slow. The Fed is expected to cut by 25 basis points, but that's not real clear. It's kind of half of market thinks that it's going to be 25 basis points, half thinks it's going to be 50, and the last data point we get prior to that is retail sales. So what if there's a really bad retail sales? Does that push the Fed to 50 basis points? Is that the deal breaker, or do they come in at 25? If they do 25 here, they're probably going to do another 25 at the next meeting. So does it really matter? Well, markets are going to watch and markets are going to anticipate, and there's going to be some volatility. This chart references Fed funds rate. And what I want to point out is the trend. When the Fed goes in a rate hiking cycle, notice that back here in 2015, 2016, see how they start hiking and then they pause and then they hike more and they pause and they hike and they pause and they hike and they pause. And then in 2019, they started a rate cutting cycle and they cut, and then they pause and then they cut and then they pause and then they, and so the point is that we've been through this huge rate hiking cycle, right? Trying to curb inflation, and inflation was way out in front of the Fed. The Fed didn't start hiking rates, which is a massive, massive issue. They didn't even start hiking rates until the Fed or until inflation was over 7%, which is just talk about being asleep at the wheel. Well, notice they've been in a pause for the last number of meetings in a row. We know they're going to cut. The point is that it's one cut followed by more cuts followed by more cuts. So are they going to go into a cycle where they're going to be cutting rates for the foreseeable future? I think the answer to that is yes, and markets are already pricing that in. If you look at the bond market, bond prices are going sharply higher as rates are declining because bond prices and yields move in opposite directions. So the market's already pricing in more than just this one cut. The market is not dumb. It knows that we're going to go down probably into the fours and maybe even into the threes before this thing's all said and done, because that's how these go. They go in cycles. It is not that they're going to cut once and then all of a sudden go back into a hiking cycle. The Fed is almost always behind. They always lag the data. They say they're data dependent. So just be aware, the US dollar, the bond market, the equity market, they're already pricing in more than just this one cut, even if it is 50 basis points. Today, the yen and the US dollar, the Canadian dollar, all a little bit weaker. Relative strength in the British pound, in the Aussie, and in the Kiwi for today. Crypto was clearly the worst performer. Everything else relatively flat. Gold flat, oil flat, equities flat on the day. If we dig a little deeper, Bitcoin was the worst of the cryptos, but really their charts are very, very similar. So crypto in a little bit more of a downward trend. Now equities, you got to give credit where credit is due. Very strong bounce back above the 20, back above the 50. And if you'd look at this chart, you'd say, well, we're back up towards and maybe on the cusp of the breakout, right? We've been in somewhat of an ascending triangle. Higher lows, relatively equal highs here. as we go into the Fed meeting, so you know where resistance is. We're right up against that. You know, support is down here at the trend line. We really could go either way out of this, but that's the pattern. Draw your trend line, draw your resistance line. The next big breakout would be either a breakout or a breakdown. That gets us out of this consolidation, and it gives a more clear direction for equities, whether or not we're going to go into a risk on or risk off environment. Fed expected to cut by 25 basis points, but again, it's really undecided. I think they might do 50, but we'll see. We also have the Bank of England coming out this week. We've got the Bank of Japan with a rate decision. Now, in both of those cases, rates are expected to remain unchanged, but here in the US, they're expected to be entering that cutting cycle. So, as you look at analysis, here's basically the velocity. You've got a -2 in crypto and in the Canadian dollar. You've got a +2 only in the British pound. Euro is and Aussie are a little bit stronger, US dollar a little bit weaker, but basically that's your area. Pound strong, CAD weak, crypto weak. That's how it shapes up. Everything else a little bit more undetermined at this exact moment. Now, possible trades here. If we look at a couple of these charts, here's a 4-hour chart of the British pound, and you can see why it's a stronger currency. Above an upward sloping moving average, positive buy signal there in the parabolic SAR. RSI up above the 50 level and trending higher. Now, what don't we like about it? Well, you could say that we're back up towards, we're not there yet, but back up towards the prior highs. But overall, the momentum, clearly one of the stronger areas of the market. So British pound looking good, scoring higher. We've got the euro, same thing. What do I not quite like about it? Well, we're still in this consolidative pattern, but you got to give credit where credit is due. RSI above 50 and more of an upward slope. Parabolic SAR upward, moving average trending higher. Price action just cleared some resistance. So Euro's not quite as strong as British pound, but similar, that those are a little bit better. As far as good currencies are concerned, euro, British pound a little bit stronger. What's more on the weaker side? Well, Canadian dollar, definitely weak. And this is probably the weakest currency out there, really. I've got it graded that way. You can see downward sloping, sell signal, downward sloping, even below 30 on the RSI, which usually is where things kind of pick up the pace and speed up to the downside. So Canadian dollar really looks poor, behaving poorly, trending and momentum and all of that weaker. So as far as currencies are concerned, that's your most bearish. And then all of crypto land sort of looks like this, where the bad news is we weren't able to recover. So you could drag a little channel up here in cryptos, and they broke that trend line recently. And since they've broken that trend line, moving averages sloping down, we're on a sell signal, RSI sloping down and below 50, all bearish characteristics. So we've got a little bit of a pennant formation, but I would expect, this is Ethereum, I'd expect it to trend and break to the downside. So crypto charts, I mean, pull up one, they all look very similar. Litecoin's chart, Bitcoin itself, you name it, Bitcoin Cash, they all look like this, where they're not below prior lows way back here, but they've broken their uptrend lines and been selling off since. So still in that more bearish category. So this is how I stacked them up. If you're looking on the short side, it's Canadian dollars or crypto on the bearish side. If you're looking more bullish, British pound with an honorable mention to the euro. We know the Fed is embarking on a rate cutting cycle. Expect plenty of volatility this week, especially on Wednesday as that announcement comes out and markets digest that news. Thanks for joining us here in the Currency Recap. Have a great week, everyone. We'll see you next time.